can't wait to talk with Carol Conklin. I actually had seen her name years ago. I was just telling her this offline. Probably at least 2 years ago, I first saw her name, and it was on a brochure for a ministry or for an organization called Citygate. I saw that she was a licensed clinical social worker, and I thought, if we ever deal with issues related to sexuality, I'd like to get this woman on because she obviously has a good deal of experience. And then a friend of mine mentioned that somebody had started a ministry, an organization called I Oppose, dealing with similar issues, and that it was a not-for-profit organization exclusively to prevent sexual exploitation and early sexualization of children and adolescents, and it's called ioppose.org, and then I saw Carol Conklin's name was attached to it. So, Carol, God's led you my way somehow or another. I don't know. I keep seeing your name, and now I've got friends telling me I need to interview you, so here you are. It's amazing. So.
It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to speak with you, Neil. I mean, I've watched or listened to your ministry for all these years, and it's just warms my heart to be speaking to you like this. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Now, I'm glad that I'm able to actually talk about Citygate and I Oppose, and the reason is because I first learned of you, when somebody a couple years ago handed me a brochure for Citygate, and realized that there was a counseling ministry in our area that dealt specifically with these kinds of issues. So then when I saw that an organization was being founded dealing with similar things, and then I saw your name in both places, I said, I really want to get to the bottom of this. So help us understand what Citygate is and then what I Oppose is.
Okay, Citygate, was basically the name of my private practice. And what it is it's God's ministry. He told me years ago out of Isaiah 62:10, go through the gates, prepare the highway for the people, remove the stones of stumbling from their paths, that they might enter my gates with thanksgiving. So I see myself as a stone excavator. And so sexuality can be a big stumbling block for people. And so what God led me to do is to minister to those people who are struggling in this area or who have acted out some way sexually, and it is open to anyone. But, of course, God uses it, whether it's a Christian or non-Christian issue. And so God led me back to school to receive my master's in clinical social work, and because I'd been in the banking and insurance business, all that business applies. I've seen what this issue can do in corporate worlds, but now I've been doing this for over a dozen years. I have groups and individual work, but it was out of this about 3 years ago, Neil, that God really touched my heart about. I help people one-on-one in groups, but this is a bigger issue. This is a societal issue that we need to address what the early sexualization of our children and adolescents does. And I think that the fact that we've got the internet pornography has changed everything. It's been said that it's a tsunami of information. And, God has made our brains, and He's helped make us to be able to understand how our brains work. And He can provide that healing that we need in these areas. But the younger these issues start, the harder it's going to get as children get older now, because it's blurring the boundaries between adolescents and adults in ways that are not healthy.
You talk about the early sexualization of children. What does that mean? Help describe that.
Okay, well, that would be having child-sized, adult-looking clothes. It would be these little girls dancing in bikinis. It's about now that there are child-sized thongs. There's different stores who support that, so mom and daughter can go in and buy fancy things that then prepare girls to be consumers. And even if there's a very good home environment, they go to school and they're seeing others dress in this way. So, of course, there's such pressure to conform. And then, so what happens is then you just need to look around, Neil, at how kids are dressing.
I've told this story before, so there's no should be no surprise. I've told it on the air. I shared it, with groups of men and stuff. When I struggled with pornography addiction, probably from the late teen years into my early adult years. Got some counseling, got some help, and I really believe I got some freedom around the age of maybe 27 officially, and kind of suffered in silence, just secret addiction kind of thing. I'm really glad that all of that was dealt with before the internet, because I'm not sure how I would have dealt with that tsunami thing. But you know what, Carol, the first time I saw a pornographic picture of any kind, I was 8 years old, and I was at church, and I'm not picking on anybody. I'm not picking on churches. It's just how it happened for me. I remember I'd gone to Sunday school, and a friend said, "Hey, there's something I got to show you out in my car. Come on out here. Come to my parents' car. I want to show you something." I was 8 years old, Carol. Opened the back of the station wagon. Remember those doors that either flipped down or they swung open? Okay, swung it open, flipped up that back seat, that back third seat in the back of the car, and underneath there was a pornographic magazine. I didn't know what I was looking at. I didn't have he opened it up. He showed me a picture, said, "This is my brother's. I found this, and I thought, I wanted you to see it." I don't know why he showed it to me, but, I still can see that image in my head today. Now, it doesn't hold any power over me, but I still see that image burned into my brain. And, I'm thinking, with what is available now on cable television, all kids need to do is flip through the channels when their parents aren't looking. Just go on the computer where there's no safeguards in most homes, and the kids just type in a single word, sometimes innocently, looking for information for a school project, and bam, way more than what I saw is now available to kids 5, 6, 7 years old, not even, anyway, that started me down a road of having some curiosity that I don't think I really needed to have. And I remember clipping pictures of, people out of newspapers, or looking at the Sears catalog when nobody was checking. And, that was my life early on, and I struggled with those kinds of things. Thank God, God's grace and mercy is available. But, Carol, the things in this world are now, in this day and age, are so much more accessible. And I shudder to think what little boys are faced with, and little girls, and then you deal with, we've talked about sexual abuse on the program over the last few weeks. 1 in 4 girls being sexually abused, 1 in 6 boys. Add all that into the mix, and there's some people growing up with some real issues that need to be dealt with, and that's, I believe, why God called you to do what you're doing.
Yes, there's definitely healing that needs to be done, and I think one of the first things we need to do is it's a supply and demand thing, and so there's certainly the demand in all ways, and one of the ways we can shorten at least the supply, meaning those young girls and boys who are going to go through and then participate fully in all that darkness, is to have parents because I know many parents are very vigilant with their children, but it's adults who need to protect children from childhood sexual abuse. And I think one of the disservices that was done many years ago, and I think you probably were a child then, where you were told in school about stranger danger, and so it was all don't take candy from a stranger and those kind of issues. But the reality is about 95% of all the abuse done to children and adolescents is done by someone they know. And so we need to get that information out to parents so they begin to protect their children from others who might then begin to show them, oh, look at this magazine I've got. What about this? And then I think we need to make our children media literate so that we need to protect their innocence, and I think that's key. But then they come to that age of curiosity, that preteen, where it's going to happen, like you said, accidentally they're going to be exposed. And I think at that point we need to begin to say, well, what do you think about that? And to address them in a different way than, oh, my God, stay away from that, so that then they're prepared when, like you say, you were inundated and surprised. And I think that thank goodness that you didn't have the internet. But once the internet, like you said, it is so out there. I mean, I think it's got to be very hard for boys and men on a daily basis. But there are things that you can do and be equipped. And I think a big thing is for us to recognize that there is wickedness in this world and greed that is victimizing men as well. And I mean not just through abuse, but I mean it's a $52 billion adult entertainment industry worldwide, and most of that is being spent by men. So there's a victimization of taking what God has given us, that natural desire, and it's twisting it. It's twisting it a quarter and saying your wife is not enough. Look at this. And so they're being victimized. And so I'll give you one little hint or one little, what do you call it? A way to help men. It's called the 3-second rule. And the 3-second rule is you can admire the beauty of God's creation as you see someone walking down the street, as you meet somebody, but see her as body, soul, and spirit. And if you've observed that beauty more than 3 seconds, you've gone over the line. You've got getting into like intriguing. But you know what? Men don't have to be victims because God has provided a way out. It's in His Word. And so that's what it's all about.
Sure.
It's preventing the supply. It's about intervening earlier in the process. And we need to have a way that men won't feel ashamed or the stigma so that they can get the help that they need earlier on so they don't then cross other lines of adultery and of sexual offending or all the rest of that.
Well, I want to encourage people to check out, you do have a website, IOppose.org.
Mm-hmm.
So it's got information about your work with the ministry side of things here.
Right.
For those, I mean, we had, I don't know if you heard any of the conversation earlier, but we were talking with Andrew Comiskey about his book, Naked Surrender. It's a book about finding healing, and you deal with that on a regular basis. I guess maybe the question would be, Carol, for somebody that says, look, I've tried everything. I've been a part of small groups. I've read books. I've seen counselors. I just don't know if I'll ever be free of this thing. What do you say to somebody who just feels absolutely at wit's end saying, I don't think I can ever change? Carol, is there hope?
Absolutely, there is hope. And in fact, Neil, as you talked about in revealing, I myself had an issue, but I have 20 years recovery under my belt. Now, it doesn't mean it's perfect, but I found that I was going to counselors and I was educating them. They didn't know what to do with me. And so I've developed a little program that I use in my private practice. So if somebody is feeling like they're not, they need a little bit more help, in my private practice, which is Citygate LRL, is in Life Recovery Center, CitygateLRC.com. There's the information that they could benefit from as far as what the process of change is, and I believe people can be healed. I've seen it.
Well, what do you recommend then? I want to give information about Citygate and about IOppose, but obviously not everyone lives in the Buffalo area. So, Carol, for somebody who I'm going to give your information about Citygate, if that's okay. But for somebody who lives north of Toronto or something, or in Erie, Pennsylvania, and they're listening right now, and they say, "Okay, well, I can't get there to see Carol personally." Do you talk to a pastor? Do you go through the phone book? Where do you start with something like this?
Well, I think one of the places to start is through your local church, and often, though, that's beyond what their scope of expertise. So Christian Counseling, the National Organization of Christian Counselors, that would be a place to start as well. There's an organization that I belong to, although it's a secular organization, people like a Mark Laser, who is a very strong Christian, belongs to it, and that's SASH, like sash.net, and there are many resources on there as well. And by the way, I have people that travel a couple of hours to come and see me because there aren't many resources in this area. And then through prayer, and there are organizations like Celebrate Recovery, Andrew Comiskey, he's a leader in this field. Desert Stream, I've used one of their books, Falling Forward, for men's groups for recovery from sexual addiction. So there are a number of increasing resources out there. Focus on the Family has a unit that has those issues. And, and then if somebody calls and needs some help, if they call my practice number, and I could talk to them on the phone, so we could schedule something.
Okay.
Because we do want people to get the help. I consider that sex offenders are the modern-day lepers, and no one wants to deal with all those issues. I see we are in a very sexualized culture, but no one wants to talk, no one. Many people don't want to talk about healthy sexuality.
Right.
And so it's one of those, when I talk about, I've started the nonprofit because of the fact that this is such a big issue. But getting people to talk about it or even support it has been a challenge. So I think it's great that you've begun to start this conversation. And that's what I want to do, is I want to start a conversation by addressing some of the questions related to this issue.
All right. Now, I know you have an appointment at 5, so we're going to let you go. We're not going to hold you up. But if somebody wants to contact Citygate, I see citygatecounseling.com, all one word, citygatecounseling.com. Is that still your website?
Well, it's Citygate LRC.
Oh, okay, Citygate LRC. All right.
I think if you put the counseling in, it still would go to the other one, though. I shouldn't have even said that, but LRC.com.
Okay. Well, if I can get to that right away, I will. Give us your phone number in the meantime.
Okay, the phone number is 716-883-7713.
716-883-7713, is that what you said?
That's correct.
Okay. And I'm just punching in citygatecounseling.com.
Let's see where
it does
it goes.
take you. Yes, it does take you to the right spot.
Oh, good.
All right. And LRC, you said this stands for Life Recovery Center?
Correct.
So that would be the other website, Citygate
LRC. Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll list both those links, if it's okay, on our own website here, along with your phone number, if you're all right with that.
Yes.
Then ioppose.org would be your other website.
Correct. That's the, yes.
Okay.
That's the not-for-profit that, because of some strong Christians in this area, I've been able to go forward and create this not-for-profit. So I'm really blessed.
Well, God bless you in your efforts to protect children. I'd love to have you back to talk about that, Carol. Mm-hmm. So, this is kind of an introductory thing, I hope, and we'll look forward to getting to know you a lot better in the days ahead.
My privilege, Neil.
All right, thank you. Carol Conklin, a licensed clinical social worker with Citygate Counseling. You can reach her at citygatecounseling.com or citygatellrc.com. Also, ioppose.org. Check out that website. That's the one that's dedicated to preventing sexual exploitation and early sexualization of children and adults. Vitally needed ministry, by the way. ioppose.org. Check it out, ioppose.org.